Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives? Hello, and welcome to the first ever Minisode / character deep dive episode of So Are the Days of Our Lives? I'm your host, Olivia Willis, and today, instead of recapping a full episode of Days of Our Lives and chatting with a friend of mine about it like we have been doing, I am going to take just a super quick 10 minutes out of your day to do a super cursory deep dive on one of the characters we've been talking a lot about on the podcast, but haven't had a chance to really, dive deep into their backstory, see how they got to where they are today, find out what makes them tick. To be honest, I was a little intimidated because some of these people have been on the show, since the 70s and have been getting up to a lot of crazy stuff all those years. So today I threw myself a little bit of a softball. I am starting with somebody who started on the show in 2008, which, that's no small potatoes. That was 16 years ago, and they've been involved in the show on and off since then. But hey, I'm going to take my wins where I can get them. Today, we are talking about the one, the only, Ava Vitali. She's been up to a lot in these recent episodes that I've recapped, so I figured it was a good time to do a little deep dive, get a little more context about her, and find out what she's been up to for the last 16 years in Salem. Alrighty, Ava Vitali deep dive. Here we go. Ava Vitali is played by Tamara Braun and is known as a quote-unquote mafia princess, member of the Vitali crime family. Ava was first introduced on Days of Our Lives in 2008, as I mentioned, as a mysterious woman from Steve Johnson's past, while she was stalking Steve and his family across Ireland, as one does. She gave Steve the brilliantly original nickname Patch. For those of you who may not remember, Steve Johnson does wear an eye patch, so it was really low-hanging fruit there for her, just saying. So Ava followed Steve from Ireland back to Salem, on the way causing some kind of plane malfunction that killed this man, Sean Brady. Not the Sean Brady who's currently on the show. Everybody has the same name. In Salem, Ava saw Steve hugging another woman, Hope Brady, so naturally she assumed that Hope was Steve's wife, even though Steve has a wife, Kayla, who is not Hope. It was a different time. There was no social media. How was she supposed to know what she looked like? So Ava then kidnaps Hope and holds her hostage, trying to get Steve to have sex with her. Shockingly, that does not work. It's eventually revealed that Ava's obsessed with Steve because they were supposed to be married and he stood her up on their wedding day. But Steve admits that even though he had his doubts about getting married to Ava, the reason he didn't show up at the wedding was because he had been kidnapped by some DiMera goons. God, if I had a nickel. So to cope with the stress, Ava pops some pills, which Dr. Kayla, Steve's wife, discovers are causing Ava intense paranoia. It turns out her father, mob boss Martino Vitali, had been drugging her. The humanity. So in an attempt to start a fresh lease on life, Ava starts dating John Black, which is deeply random to me. John Black is the super husky-voiced partner of Steve Johnson. They have that little firm black patch, and John is married to Marlena. He clearly was suffering from #memory loss at the time he started dating Ava Vitali. So they start dating, but people start sniffing around that old death by plane malfunction that Ava was responsible for. So eventually, Ava decides to flee Salem. She leaves. That was in 2008. Ava returned to our screens in 2015 with a big surprise. She had given birth to a son fathered by Steve, who her father, Martino, had sold on the black market. The baby black market. Ugh. Ava is determined to find their son and obviously kidnaps Kayla to blackmail Steve into helping her search. Sadly, they find out the baby died. And so with nothing to live for, Ava makes it her life's mission to stay in Salem and torment Steve and Kayla, eventually driving Steve and Kayla's teenage son, Joey, to smother Ava to death. Yes, Ava fully died. But this is Salem we're talking about, people. Years later, we find out that Salem's resident mad scientist, every sleepy suburb of Chicago has one, Dr. Wilhelm Rolf, has been keeping a warehouse of deceased individuals to see if he can Frankenstein them back to life, Ava being one of them. But then there was a fire at said warehouse, and it was thought Ava didn't make it out, but she did. She can't be killed twice. Ava returned to the Vitali mob family to live in secret until 2020. Ava made her triumphant return to Salem. She was forcing Philip Kyriakis to launder money through Titan to pay off some gambling debts. So when she's back in Salem, this is when she discovered that Trip, her son with Steve, is actually alive and in Salem. He's an adult man now. So I assume they're thinking that like she gave birth to Trip before the whole 2008 Ireland stalking thing. Couldn't tell you. But Ava also finds out that her son Trip is being accused of raping this woman, Allie Horton. Ava knows he couldn't have done it because I don't know why. She's literally never met him before, but I guess a mother just knows. Meanwhile, we learn that Ava has another adult son named Charlie, who she never cared about because she was always so consumed by her obsession with Steve and Trip, the baby she thought was dead. So this lack of love turned Charlie into a stone-cold psycho. And it turns out Charlie is the one who raped Allie, and he was framing his half-brother Trip for revenge because their mother never loved him. When Ava learned this, she tried to get Charlie to confess, but he held her captive and gave her mind-altering drugs. Her poor mind. She cannot catch a break. Eventually, Charlie was killed, and Ava does what every mother with a complicated relationship to her dead son does when she's recovering from mind-altering drugs. She moves in with Rafe, the police commissioner, and they start dating. It didn't last, of course. He left her for another woman, Nicole, and Ava briefly framed Rafe for falsifying evidence against a defendant and tried to ruin his career. Eventually, Ava fell in love again with Jake DiMera, but the day Jake proposes and they go to get an engagement ring, they get mugged, and Jake gets shot by the mugger and dies. Tragic. Obviously, this tragedy becomes all about corporate power dynamics. This is DiMera Enterprises, after all. Gabby Hernandez, who has shares in DiMera Enterprises from her at-the-time dead husband, Stefan, Gabby convinced Ava to pretend that she and Jake were already married so Ava would be entitled to Jake's shares in the company and they could let girl boss take over DiMera Enterprises. However, EJ DiMera always suspected Ava of lying, especially when she started a little flirtation with his son, Johnny. EJ found proof that Ava and Jake's marriage license was fraudulent, and he tried to run Ava out of town. At this point, Ava begins seeing visions of her dead evil son, Charlie, who was encouraging her to exact revenge via evil doing. So to get back at EJ for trying to run her out of town, Ava gets Xander to help her kidnap EJ's mother, Susan Banks, Miss Teeth, as some of you may know her. While Ava's on the run with Susan, Ava drives them off a cliff, and Susan is presumed dead, and Ava's sent to Bayview for psychiatric treatment. Which is where we find Ava in the fall of 2023, where I've started my recaps. She meets former Navy SEAL Harris Michaels in Bayview. He supports her as she starts seeing visions of Susan. He protects her from EJ's hitman, and they go on the run together to look for Susan in London, aka the Big Smoke. So basically, that's what you missed on Days of Our Lives. We are definitely going to have some more shenanigans from Ava in the weeks and months and, let's be honest, years to come. I personally can't wait to see what else Ms. Vitali gets up to. Basically, all you need to know is she is prone to evil doing, but her only moral compass is her beautiful, beautiful blonde adult son, Trip. Lastly, I just want to shout out the Days of Our Lives wiki and soapsindepth.com for some comprehensive backstory on things that have been going on since the dawn of time in Days of Our Lives. Give me a follow on Instagram at So Are the Days Podcast, and watch this space for a visual element to these minisodes. I'm going to try something out where I make a video of the recap with the pictures and everything so that people can see what people look like, have a different frame of reference for these characters, because by God, we need all the help we can get to keep track of all these people. Alrighty, and with that, I'm going to say goodbye.